Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So I was listening to Kendall Fuller's press conference today, among others. Terry McLaurin spoke, Taylor Heineke spoke, Ron Rivera spoke, and we'll get to some of what was said a little bit later on in the show. But in particular, I was listening to Kendall Fuller talking. He was very brief, as you would imagine. Only 3 minutes, was Kendall Fuller's press conference. But in those 3 minutes, he mentioned something that kind of stuck with me. And I'm not revealing anything that's groundbreaking tonight. What I'm about to talk about isn't something that is this revelation that's going to blow your mind. But, Kendall Fuller said there's not that much difference between our start to the season defensively this year and our start to the season defensively last year. And when he said that, I thought to myself, wait a minute, he's not wrong. And so I went back and I looked. And, I played back those first, 5 or 6 games last year in my head. You win week 1 against the Eagles, spot the Eagles 17 points. We were terrible defensively early in that game, if you remember. Eagles jumped on us early. Goddard had a touchdown. Ertz had an easy walk-in. They were killing us early. It was 17-0, and we were getting drubbed right up until the interception to end the first half by Fabian Moreau that changed the whole tenor of that ball game. Then you get the Jimmy Moreland pick, and all of a sudden we're balling, and then we scored 27 unanswered. But what that 27 unanswered did was it masked the fact that we were struggling early in that game against the Eagles. Gave up a 3rd and 24 over the top. Had another opportunity, but Wentz missed Deshaun Jackson over the top. Like, it could have been all bad in that game, but we got lucky. And then the next week at Arizona, we were down 20-0 at halftime, got smoked 30-15 in that game, wasn't very good defensively in that game, gave up almost 300 passing to Murray, well over 150 on the ground between Murray and Kenyon Drake. Then I went to week 3, not too bad of a defensive performance, but remember that game at the very end, we couldn't stop the run to save our lives, but also in that game, no Chase Young, essentially no Ioannidis. Both of those guys went down relatively early in that ball game. And it was a struggle to stop the run late after the Browns finally took the lead in the fourth quarter. They put up 30+ on us, and they beat us as well. The Ravens game, 31-17, never was in doubt. The Ravens seemed to have control of that game pretty much from the start. Nothing really flashy in the game. Lamar had the big touchdown run. Mark Andrews kicked our ass. What's new? A tight end going off on the Washington football team. Raise your hand if you've heard that one before. So, but it wasn't a great defensive performance there either. Then, obviously, you have the Rams debacle, which that I thought was the worst defensive performance of the year. That and maybe the first half of Detroit was pretty damn bad. And then obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playoff game probably was the worst defensive performance of the year, but we did get some turnovers in that game. At least we didn't get any turnovers against the Rams. It was just a straight beatdown, 30-10. Lost Kyle Allen in the second quarter. That was the first time we were reintroduced to Alex Smith. It was ugly. Needless to say, the defense was terrible in that game as well. And in week 6 against the Giants, Daniel Jones had over 100 yards rushing in that game against us. So defense wasn't great in that game, but they were actually better. We did force a turnover. Kendall Fuller had a pick in the back of the end zone, and we had a chance to win that game, but we didn't. Anyway, long story short, the first 5 games of the season last year, we were pretty much terrible on defense last year. So what's the biggest difference between this year and last year? Well, I'll give you 2, okay? One, obviously, is the expectations. We didn't know what the hell the defense was going to be. We just wanted to not be one of the worst defenses in the league last year going into Ron Rivera's first year and Jack Del Rio's first year here in Washington. So there were no expectations. We were just happy to not be the worst in the league. Okay. We were the worst third down defense in football when Jack and Ron showed up. So we were just hoping to not be that anymore. So that's number one. But that's not the biggest difference. But that's one of the biggest differences. The reason why people give a shit this year and didn't really care last year, one, there were no expectations. But two, the defense wasn't supposed to be good. We were hoping it was good. This year, we're not hoping it's good. It's supposed to be good. And it's terrible. But to Kendall Fuller's point, there wasn't much difference. Here's the biggest difference. And you know what it is. You know what it is. And if you're not thinking about what it is right now, when I say it, you're going to go, oh, yeah, I already knew that. But the biggest difference, and I went through each and every single game in the regular season, all 16 of them last season. And the biggest difference between this year's defense, and this is what has me scared, which is why I don't think they're going to turn this around, but they could. They could. We'll see. And last year's defense is third down defense. Okay? When Del Rio and Ron first got here, Del Rio's first words out of his mouth were, this team was terrible on third downs. One of the worst. As a matter of fact, 32nd in the league. That's the first thing we've got to change. Got to get off the field on third downs. That's the money down. That was Jack Del Rio's quote, essentially. Got to get off the field on third downs. That's the money down. He's not wrong. As a matter of fact, that's actual and factual. Last year, we only had one game where we surrendered a higher than 50% third down conversion rate against us. Week number 6 against the Giants. That was it. They went 7 of 11 in that game versus us. Every other game, all 15 of them were all below 50%, in most cases below 40% on third downs. There were a couple of 5 for 12s and maybe a 5 of 11, which is close to 50, over 40. But for the most part, every single week, teams against us, and there might have been a 6 of 11 in there somewhere, but again, not over 50%. For the most part, it was 3 of 14. It was 5 of 14. It was 6 of 17. It was, 4 of 11. Like, we were smothering teams on third down last year. Now, you could talk about, the quarterbacks we played and the offense as well. This includes week 2 against Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. This includes week 3 against Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. This includes week 4 against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. This includes Sean McVay coached Rams offense. This includes Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions and Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, all the good offenses that we did face, they didn't have success on us on third downs. And so when I look at the difference between last year's defense and this year's defense, for me, the biggest difference isn't the big plays. We can sit here and bitch and complain about, we gave up big plays last year too. That was a problem. It was a big problem. We talked about it all offseason. We talked about it all last year. We gave up big plays all over the place. That's not new. The run defense actually has been really good this season for the most part. There have been a couple of breakdowns, but for the most part, the run defense has been actually pretty damn good. The biggest difference between this year's defense and last year's defense, and yes, we had 8 sacks in week 1 against the Eagles, okay? That makes a big damn difference, too, when the quarterback is under duress and doesn't feel comfortable because he doesn't have much time to get rid of the football. The defense was a bit more aggressive getting after the quarterback just by rushing 4, sometimes 5. But that's not even the biggest difference. And maybe there's a direct correlation between pressure on the quarterback, and I'd like to say that there is, and third down conversion rates. But you know what, too? Ronald Darby was batting down a hell of a lot of footballs last year. So was Kendall Fuller. Wasn't always Chase Young and Montez Sweat and Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne getting in the face of the quarterback. Those guys were making plays on the back end as well. It's not happening right now. Third down defense is the reason we feel the way we feel about this football team defensively. Even if we weren't getting the pressure that we think we should be getting, if we were getting off the field on third downs, we're not having the discussion that we're having right now about this defense. But the simple fact of the matter is, on 3rd and 14, you feel just as confident as you do on 3rd and 2. That shouldn't be the case. 3rd and 2, you're like, yeah, it's probably a 70% chance they're going to convert this. 3rd and 1, probably 90% chance they're going to convert this. You shouldn't feel the same way about a 70, 75% chance as a 3rd and 14, which is probably more like 20%. Should be around the league, 15 maybe even, depending on who you're playing against. But 3rd and 14 doesn't feel that much different than 3rd and 2 right now for this defense. It's a shame. Third down defense is the reason we thought that we were watching some of the worst defenses in NFL history back in 16 and 17 because we couldn't get off the field on third downs. It's the reason that we felt like this defense had no hope. Even though we had first-round picks on the defensive line without Chase Young in 2019, we felt like we had no hope because we couldn't get off the field. When Jack Del Rio first got here, he said, we got to be better on third downs. We were the worst on third down in the league defensively. Got to change that. And he did year one. Now, what happened between then and now? Don't ask me. I can't tell you. I don't have the antidote. I just know that we, for whatever reason, can't stop teams on third down. And that is what is really killing us. That's what's keeping drives alive. And that's what's getting teams to put points on the scoreboard against us. That's what's stopping our offense from having more opportunities. And that's what's stopping our offense from getting better field position. If you have a team go 3 and out from their own 25-yard line, and they move it to the 33 and they have to punt, you're not going to end up starting at your own 2-yard line. That happens when you give up 2 first downs and they punt from, their own 49, or they're punting from right around midfield, and then the punter drops it at the 4. Our guy doesn't catch it and it's down at the 1, or it hits at the 8. Our guy doesn't catch it. It dribbles down to the 2 and it's down. That doesn't happen generally if they're punting. That punter has his heels on his own 17-yard line. He's not kicking the shit 87 yards, 83 yards. So third downs is what's killing us. Even when it doesn't produce points, getting first downs moves field position. The biggest difference between this year's defense and last year's defense is the inability to get off the field on third downs. It's not the big plays. We were giving those up last year. It's the inability to get off the field on third downs. Whether it's a penalty, we've given up quite a few third down penalties that converted into first downs, where you're thinking you're getting off the field and it's pass interference. Or it's roughing the passer. How many times have we done that this year? Oh, we're getting off the field. Nope. 4th down, roughing the passer. Fresh set of downs. We've done that multiple times this year. Had a team in 3rd and forever. Personal foul, roughing the passer. Chase Young has at least 3 of those this year by his damn self. William Jackson III has some penalties. Kendall Fuller has some penalties. Torrey McTyer has some penalties. Third downs is the biggest difference between this year and last year's defense. And if they don't get it cleaned up, we'll be one of the worst defenses for the remainder of the season. If they can clean up third down defense, we're not that far off. But that's where they have to start. Honestly, that's where it starts and ends. getting off the field. We weren't a high turnover team last year. It was like music to our ears and a sight for sore eyes to see those 2 first quarter turnovers forced against the Saints. It was equally as frustrating, however, to see the offense not be able to turn them into touchdowns. That was a bad omen in itself. That was like a precursor to what was going to ultimately happen in the game. But I digress. Let's get to in other news. So we heard from Ron. We heard from Kendall Fuller, as I just mentioned. We heard from Terry McLaurin. We heard from Taylor Heineke. We'll talk about what they had to say. Not a lot of, juicy tidbits today, but I did think the media was very cooperative today. I don't know if somebody got in their ear and said, hey, ease up on Ron today and the players. Let's talk about some things that are positive here. Let's get some good mojo going. And I wouldn't put it past our organization to put out a memo to all of the media members to ease up. Hey, let's lighten up on Ron here. Let's have questions that are more so centered around the players on the team and things that we can talk about and not have a contentious conversation about. And let's kind of keep that positivity going, because I thought this was going to be a rough week after what we saw on Monday with Ron getting chesty and some of the things that have come out. I thought this thing could have gone totally sideways and been really contentious all week. I mean, they were singing Kumbaya today. I mean, Terry McLaurin at the end of his press conference actually thanked the media for what was a great press conference. He said, I really enjoyed that, guys. Thank you. I mean, that's the kind of day it was. So we'll get back to that in a second. But as always, let's take a look at the injury report. We got our first glance at it today. Wednesday's practice featured a number of guys working on the side field. I'm always a proponent of seeing guys out on the side field, because even if you don't practice, but you're on the side field, that is a positive step towards you getting back to the main field and practicing with the rest of your teammates. When you're not out there at all, even if you're in street clothes and you're not even participating, but if you're out there, that's a good sign. You're not that bad off. If you're not out there at all, like we saw with Cam Sims and De'Ami Brown and Brandon Sheriff last week, they're not playing. So when I hear that a guy's on the side field, I'm like, okay, golf clap. That's a step in the right direction. When they say, hey, this guy's not here, that guy's not here, and this guy's not out there, that's not a good thing. That usually means that guy probably isn't going to practice or play this week. So let's take a look at the injury report and a closer look at what is going on for both teams heading into week 6 matchup. So obviously we're going to have to break this thing into halves again, like we did last week, because there's so many names. It's not as many though. It's actually shrunk. Last week, there were 12 names. This week, there are 10 names. So we'll cut this thing in half, 5 and 5. So the bottom 5 of Cam Sims, Jonathan Allen, De'Ami Brown, Cole Holcomb, and James Smith-Williams. For the most part, those guys are going to play. All right. Of this group, the biggest name to practice today is De'Ami Brown, without a doubt. And you could argue that he is the biggest name on this entire injury report, with the fact that he practiced today. I wasn't expecting him to practice this soon in the week. I thought it would be more so Thursday, Friday, where we would hear of De'Ami Brown finally getting on the field in some capacity. The fact that he was limited today is music to my ears, and I'm excited about the prospects of him potentially getting back on the field and playing this week, because we had AGG on the field on a couple of snaps. That's scary. It really is. So De'Ami Brown being back on the football field for practice today is a big, big thing for Washington. Now, if you look at the rest of these guys, they all practiced, with the exception of Cam Sims. And Sims was out there. Now, he was in street clothes. He didn't participate at all, not even on the side field. But the fact that he was out there, he wasn't out there at all last week. I'm holding my breath for Cam Sims to be back. It's a hamstring. Those things are tricky, as you know. I think one more week of rest probably will do him some good. But Jonathan Allen was on the injury report last week. We never doubted him playing, and that's the same way I feel this week. De'Ami Brown practicing this early in the week. I'm not letting him out of the woods quite yet. We'll see if he practices again tomorrow. We know how Ron is about seeing how guys feel the day after, which is a big thing. So if De'Ami does practice tomorrow, that's a good sign that he's trending towards playing. If he doesn't practice, that means he could have had a setback or he doesn't feel good enough, and that might put a little bit of pause towards them, rushing him back, and they may say, hey, let's be a little bit more cautious with him and hold him back. So we'll see with De'Ami. Cole Holcomb's shoulder, that he was on the injury report last week. He played. I feel the same way this week. Same with James Smith-Williams and his toe. He practiced last week with that toe injury, played. I expect him to be out there as well. So Cam Sims on the bottom five is really the only guy right now looking like a long shot at this point. But again, we'll see. Hamstrings are tricky. Also want to keep our eye on De'Ami Brown and his health as the week progresses. You get to the top five, and these are the guys that are really tricky and more likely than not going to miss some time. Of this group, you've got Sam Cosmi, Antonio Gibson, Jared Norris, Curtis Samuel, and Brandon Sheriff. Now, Sam Cosmi with the ankle, I don't think he's going to play. But we'll see. Ankles are tricky again, just like hamstrings. We don't know the severity, and Ron didn't get into specifics, which he usually doesn't, of the ankle sprain. Is it a high ankle sprain? Is it a low ankle sprain? Is it a grade 1, 2, or 3 ankle sprain? We don't know any of that. If we would know that, then we would be able to project whether he could go this week or not. I told you Wednesday is the day you hold guys out of practice. You don't have to practice on Wednesday. That's the install day. I need your mental focus more so than your physical attention. So would you like them out there? Absolutely. But do they have to? No. Wednesday's the day you sit everybody down. They get the game plan. They see what's going on, and they internalize that. You get them back on the practice field on Thursday, if at all possible. Antonio Gibson with the shin, that's been an ongoing issue. First it was the shoulder, then it was the shin. It is what it is. He's going to play. He's going to be fine. Jared Norris just got on the injury report this week with the shoulder injury. Anytime you talk about a core special teamer and a fiend, you want that guy out there. Hopefully he's okay and able to go this week. Curtis Samuel, another big name. We know about the groin. He tried to test it out last week, wasn't able to really do much. Started the game off, got, I think, 2 touches last week and then shut it down. And so that's a guy worth monitoring. He was on the side field practicing, so he didn't have any participation in practice today, but he was on the side field, which is a good omen for him potentially giving it a go at some point later on in the week and maybe playing again and trying to test it out on Sunday. So we'll see there. And then Brandon Sheriff's knee, I'm still not comfortable with him playing this week. I think next week is the week where I think he'll start to maybe make some progress, and we may see him practice once or twice and ultimately play in week number 7 against the Packers on the road. But I think Sheriff's going to be out again this week. So that's the injury report for Washington. We look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and they've got quite a few people on here, just like we do. Not as many. I think they've got 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but not that far off. We've got 10. They've got 9. The biggest difference is they've got some heavy hitters up here, but don't expect a lot of these guys to miss the game. So Jaron Reed, you can go ahead and take him off the injury report immediately. Their defensive tackle, as you can see, it says NIR, which means non-injury related. So he's not hurt at all, just had the day off for whatever reason. He's fine. So the guy that I really want to focus on is Chris Jones, their defensive and / defensive tackle. He is the heart and soul of their defense in terms of up front. Tyrann Mathieu is the heart and soul of that defense as a whole. But when you talk about the guy that, gives them a chance to be competitive defensively, it's Chris Jones. Without him, they have no pass rush, and you have no reason to fear their defense whatsoever. With him in there, he can single-handedly wreck a game plan, much like Aaron Donald. He's the second best defensive tackle in all of football, and to me, it's not even close. So if he plays, he's problematic for our offensive line, especially with no Sheriff. And the last time we played against one of these guys without Brandon Sheriff, you remember the game last year with Aaron Donald. You remember how that went. I would not like to see a repeat of that. So he didn't play last week, did Chris Jones, with the wrist. It'd be nice if he sat out one more week with that wrist injury, be great if he didn't play. But we'll see what happens there. Tyreek Hill with the quad, he'll play. Blake Bell with the back. I don't know if he'll play or not, but he's not a big part of their offense. Charvarius Ward, is a big part of their defense at the cornerback position. He's out with a quad right now. I surmise most of these guys, Anthony Hitchens with the knee, a lot of these guys I think are going to ultimately play. Joe Thuney, who they got from the Patriots, paid a bunch of money to this past offseason, hand injury. When's the last time you saw an offensive lineman miss time with a hand injury? They're going to put, even if that thing's broken, they're going to put a soft cast on that thing, wrap that shit up like a mummy, and he'll be out there. So, again, most of these guys are going to play for the Chiefs. And then the guys at the bottom, Chris Lamons and Lucas Niang, both were full participants. So you can take those guys off the injury report more likely than not as well. So with that said, they've got some heavy hitters up there. Joe Thuney, Chris Jones, Tyreek Hill, Jaron Reed. But again, Reed is NIR, non-injury related. So he's playing. Tyreek Hill, I don't think that quad injury is really serious. He'll be out there more likely than not. Chris Jones is the guy because he didn't play last week with the wrist injury. We might be able to catch a break, and he might not be able to play again this week. I'm not holding my breath. I think he'll be back this week, but it'd be great if we can get – if everyone else played and he didn't, that's a win for us. Simply put, end of discussion. So that's one to monitor for the remainder of the week, and we will watch that one closely to see if he practices at all, because if we can get him out of there, man, will that do wonders for our offense in terms of having an opportunity to set up shop and Taylor Heinicke have time to go through his progressions and get rid of the football. So heard from Ron Rivera, Terry McLaurin, and Taylor Heinicke in particular, in addition to Kendall Fuller. But those three were the ones that talked for the longest amount of time. You know, Ron Rivera talked about this defense. Obviously, that's a huge topic of discussion, but they actually kind of steered away from the defense today, which is why I think maybe PR for the Washington football team reached out to the media and said, hey, come on, guys. You know, let's lighten up here. You know, let's kind of steer clear of any of the, trainer questions. Let's kind of, dial it back on some of these defensive questions that are specific about, the staff and benching guys. Let's focus specifically on players and things of that nature, but less on trying to get rid of people. I don't know. I can't confirm nor deny that, but it seemed like it was a lot of soft lollipop questions today. The kind that you ask when your team is 6-1, not when you're 2-3. But I don't really care about that stuff. Ron talked about the defense, and he talked about, the growth of the defense and how, they do need to see guys, start to adjust to, certain things. He talked about, Andy Reid and his, relationship with Andy Reid and the influence Andy Reid has had on his career. And, so those were more along the lines of the questions. They asked him about DeAndre Carter and what makes him special. And this was a DeAndre Carter day. Everybody got asked about DeAndre Carter. Terry got asked about DeAndre Carter multiple times. Taylor did as well, and Ron did too. So this was a heavy DeAndre Carter day. That he was asked about the injuries and signing Corn Elder, which he spoke on. Washington got rid of the kicker, Chris Blewett. So we're back down to having just Dustin Hopkins. For some of you out there who are following it closely, Dustin Hopkins is the lone kicker on the roster again. They had to create space due to the injury to Darrell Roberts, who's dealing with a quad injury. So they have signed Corn Elder, and they also brought back Cole Luke, who was here in the summertime on this roster in the offseason and in the preseason. They brought him back on the practice squad as well. So, a lot of moves made, a lot of transactions for the football team. But at the end of the day, what all of that speaks to is the lack of depth, essentially, and now the war of attrition at the cornerback position with some of the injuries Torrey McTyer done for the season, and of course, Darrell Roberts now having an injury himself. Our core guys are still here. William Jackson III, Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St. Juste. The core three dudes are still here, but it's getting interesting now because if you have to go any further down the depth chart, that's when things get a little interesting as far as the depth of this team at the cornerback position is concerned. So remember, and I spoke about this on the podcast earlier, one of the positions we were really concerned about going into the season after linebacker depth was cornerback depth. And Torrey McTyer was a pleasant surprise. We didn't expect him to do what he did. But remember, Troy Apke is one of our corners. We don't want to see him on the field. So, we had the luxury of keeping him when Torrey McTyer was healthy and Darryl Roberts was healthy. Now, all of a sudden, with those two guys injured, you don't have that much depth. And it's getting a little murky at corner. So we could see Corn Elder on the field this week. I mean, it's that dire at cornerback right now. And this is not the week for that, obviously, with the Chiefs coming to town. But we'll see what happens. The bottom line is we're not in a great spot. And Ron, didn't say that, but he was like, yeah, Corn Elder can come in here and pick things up pretty quickly. He's a smart guy. And that's what they expect him to do because they're probably going to need him this week. Terry talked about, there's this notion that he got locked down by Marshawn Lattimore, and to the naked eye, that is in fact the case. But we all watched the game. We all saw a lot of those throws were late and behind Terry, and he won. He had a step a couple of times, and there were some times where Lattimore won, and he was in great position. Like Terry couldn't get deep on him. And that was the thing. Terry just couldn't get vertical on him. He was in Terry's hip pocket, anything vertical. But the things that were going across the field, I thought Terry won on just about every single one of those over routes and anything going across the field in the opposite direction. I felt like Terry had a step on him every single time, and Taylor was just simply late on a lot of those throws. So Terry talked about that. He didn't want to throw Taylor under the bus, but he really was like, I really want a bunch of those matchups, but he couldn't really say it like he wanted to because again, you don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but he pretty much was like, yeah, nah, I did my damn thing for real. If you want to be honest, and so that can be frustrating at times. And Taylor Heineke said he's using the last week's performance as fuel, and I'm hoping that the trend continues with him for this week, and then he breaks that the following week, because the trend right now is you get a really good game, then you get a poor game. You get a really good game, then you get a poor game. And so if that trend continues, then we're due for a really good Taylor Heineke outing. And then everyone will be coming here talking about, hey, he just needs more time. He's only had 6 NFL starts and this, that, and the third, but this guy can do it. And, at the end of the day, he said the same thing in the press conference today that he said the week after. Now, he acknowledges that, he tried to do too much. He said, and I went back and I watched, and, I love the fact that he's self-aware. He's like, yeah, I went back and watched, and, those were 2 really bad throws and decisions. Like, I can't do that. And, it's not the worst thing in the world to get 10 yards on 3rd and 16 and punt, and he said, and I thought it was a really good question asked by one of the media members that said, look, do you feel the pressure of having to respond when you see the scoreboard changing? And I brought this up and I said it in that exact way, when you see the scoreboard changing and you look up, and every time you get on the field, you're down by 7 the last time. You get back on the field, you're down by 14. And the next time you get back on the field, you're down 17. You're feeling like, I got to do something. And he said, I learned from that in the Buffalo game that, I can't do that. And I try to do it again. So I know how that goes. I can't do that anymore. So we'll see. Talk is cheap. I need to see it, but heard some good things today. But again, we're past the point of hearing things now. We just want action at this point. So anyway, I digress. Let's get to social media maneuvers. And this is where you guys take over the show. So I will turn everything over to you guys. I want to give a quick shout out to Redskins Weekly _ for being the first in the comment section. Yes, you can get a shout out. Okay, so Redskins Weekly _ thanks for being the first in the comment section. Let's get to all of your comments and see what you guys have to say, see what is being said, and we'll discuss any and everything under the sun. So we start with CJ Shoots Photo. Thank you for the super chat, CJ Shoots Photo. And also thank you for being a member of the MOBB. And also I want to thank CJ Shoots Photos for being a member of the MOBB for 2 months now. So you've earned your S, and soon you'll have that SQ on your stamp. So thank you for being a valued member of the MOBB. And my guy CJ Shoots Photo writes, keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Are we going to make adjustments to our secondary? I wish I had the answers. I can tell you this, in watching, and this was brought up today, and I've seen this, and I told you guys this after the game, because a lot of you have been, talking man versus zone, the first few weeks of the season. They ran a lot more man, and I told you guys that, and I said, look, we ran man and we got beat. Like, it's almost like you can't win right now. We play zone and guys aren't honoring their responsibilities. We play man and guys are getting beat. Like, what do you want? I mean, at this point, it's hard to do anything, again, aggressive or exotic when we can't do the little things correctly yet. But last week was better. The third down conversion rate was lower. The Saints were 5 of 14. It's not like they killed us on third downs or anything like that. Defensively, I've said this already, and I know you don't want to hear it because we gave up 33 points, which is really disgusting. But it was our best defensive effort of the season. Most people will look at the Chargers game week 1 and say, well, we only gave up 16 or 20 in that game, so that was our best defensive performance. No, it wasn't. The Chargers were like 13 of 16 on third downs in that game, and the Chargers possessed the football for damn near 40 minutes of the football game. No, it wasn't our best defensive performance. They carved us up, and we just got lucky because the Chargers were awful in the red zone. 2 turnovers in the red zone, and they had to settle for a field goal in the red zone as well. That was the only difference. Other than that, they would have scored 32. They killed us in that football game, offensively. So this was the best game, and Ron's talked about those 2 plays, and those were 2 big-time plays, but you do take those 2 plays away. Hell, you don't even have to take away the 72-yarder. Okay, they got us. Shit. The Hail Mary is what killed us. The Hail Mary is what absolutely broke our back. And even though we still had a whole half of football to overcome it, we never really did overcome that Hail Mary. I don't give a shit what anybody says. That Hail Mary was what really broke our back in that football game. So we were actually better defensively this week, past week, I should say. But again, you give up 33. Nobody really wants to hear about being better when you still give up 33 points. And when you had 2 critical possessions at the end of the game where your offense showed life and needed a stop and you weren't able to get it, nobody wants to hear about being better. You didn't come up when you needed to come up clutch. So I don't know if they're going to make any adjustments in the secondary. I wish I could tell you. I really wish I could. I don't even know if there are real adjustments to be made other than the safety position. And I can tell you right now with 100% certainty, they're not making any adjustments there right now. They're not benching Landon Collins. You may see a little bit more of Cam Curl, but they're not benching Landon Collins. Bobby McCain will still be out there. If that's what you're talking about, then yeah, they're not making any adjustments to that degree. I can tell you that right now, for sure. Thank you for the super chat, CJ Shoots Photo. Leon Hall, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Leon Hall, writes, hey, Lou, what are your thoughts on the play calling on offense and defense? I thought we were going to play a lot more man-to-man this year. Well, they started doing that the last couple of weeks a little bit more. Excuse me, specifically in this game. There was a lot more man-to-man coverage, and you could argue that's part of the reason why the third down defensive percentage wasn't as bad. Some of that, too, was Jameis Winston and their offense, making mistakes, getting behind the sticks, and giving us a chance to get off the field. That said, we still got beat. We still gave up plays, but I think they're trying to see what they can do and what they can get away with and what works best for this defense right now. And it's still trial and error. And I know you don't want to hear this, but it is still early this season. We're 5 games into a 17-game season. And as I mentioned already, last year we were just as bad as we were on defense this year. We were giving it up at a high clip last year to start the season off. The biggest difference, as I mentioned, was the third down defense. That was pretty consistent throughout last year. And there was a let up in competition after the first 5 games of the season. If you recall, it was murderer's row. It's almost like Dwayne Haskins was set up for failure, which didn't matter. He stunk anyway. But remember, those first 5 games were brutal last year. It was Philadelphia, it was Arizona, it was Cleveland, it was Baltimore, and then it was the Rams. Like, it was a rough go of it first 5 weeks. And then it lightened up because we got division games. We got Giants, Dallas, Giants. And then we got Cincinnati, Detroit, Cincinnati, Dallas again. And so it lightened up. There's no lighten up this year. This shit is tough throughout. So we'll see if they're able to pick it up to get better. But last year, we never had this issue on third downs. 3 of our first 5 games this season, teams have completed third downs at either a 50, 60, or above % clip against our defense on third downs. Week 2 against the Giants, they were 3 of 11, and week 5 last week against New Orleans, 5 of 14. Every other week, we've been dominated on third downs. I think the Falcons were 9 of 14. The Bills were like something crazy. I think they were they didn't have a lot of third downs. I think they were 6 of 11 or something like that. Might have been even better than that. Let's check and see what the let's look and see what the Bills were in week 2 or 3, defensively or offensively, I should say, against us on third downs. Bills, I think they were 6 of 11. They didn't have a lot of third downs, if I recall. I could be wrong. I just remember 3rd and 15 on the opening drive of the game, and they converted. So that sucked. They were 9 of 15 on third down. So never mind. They were 9 of 15. No, the Falcons, I got it wrong. I thought about the Bills. The Bills were 9 of 15. The Falcons were 10 of 16. Now that I remember, I'm going to look just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure they were 10 of 16 or 10 of 17. I think they were 10 of 16. Let's see. 10 of 16. There it is. So, and then we know the Chargers, what were they? I think they were 13 of 16 were the Chargers in week 1. It was astronomical. It was horrible. 14 of 19. Yikes. So 3 out of the 5 games this year, we've been absolutely horrid on third down. And in the Giants game, they were 3 of 11, and this past game, 5 of 14. So we've been better, more recently, but we'll see. And maybe some of that can be attributed to more man. I think some of that too was pressure on the quarterback. We got a lot better pressure on Jameis Winston. We'll see if we can continue that this week against Mahomes and their offensive line. So thank you for the super chat, Leon Hall. Daniel Morgan, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Daniel Morgan, writes, Lou, why are we in shotgun every damn play? We have the O-line to power run. Heineke needs to get behind center and run it down their throat. I blame Turner. So, Daniel, that's Scott Turner's offense. We saw this last year. We talked about this last year. His offense is mainly gun-based. So a lot of what we do is going to be out of gun. A lot of his runs are gun runs. A lot of his offense, it starts with being in the gun. Quarterbacks see the field better when they're in shotgun. So, yes, there are times where Heineke gets under center, but they really want to run, the vast majority of their stuff out of gun. And that's what they did last year under Turner, and that's what they're going to do this year, and that's what they're going to do moving forward. And I don't agree with the sentiment that we have the offensive line, to run it down people's throats. I told you guys, that's not what we are. We're a finesse offensive line, and we can get the job done. And we've seen that this offensive line has done a good enough job of getting in the way and getting a body on a body and creating some rush lanes. But we're not the Cleveland Browns, we're not the Baltimore Ravens, we're not the Tennessee Titans. We're not, I've already said this, we're not putting anybody's dick in the dirt in the run game. That's not like, we don't line up and just say mano y mano, we're gonna, punch you in the face and with the run game. Like that's not what we do. But I think they've done a really good job. They've exceeded my expectations on the ground out of the gun, spread teams out and been able to run it effectively. I've been actually pleasantly surprised, but make no mistake about it, we're not a turn around and hand it off 40 times in a ball game type of team. That's not how this offensive line is built. That's not what we are. But anyway, I think that we've actually done a really good job when we have run it this season. And it's been a lot of gun runs. I think when we actually struggle is when we get under center and we try to run it that way. I think that's when we've had some of our biggest losses. When we, try to run it on 4th and 1 and we get under center, that's when we get stopped. That's when somebody gets beat. When we run it out of gun on 3rd and 2, that's when we convert. When we run it out of gun on 3rd and 1, I know some of you hate it. I know my guy Derek B can't stand 3rd and 1 gun runs. But that's when we've been successful, to be honest with you. When we get under center and we challenge the other team and we get all of our big personnel in there and it's 13 personnel and we tell the other team, hey, we're running it here, we usually get stuffed. So I actually like what they're doing, and I actually think Scott Turner hasn't been that bad. I've talked about this before with Scott Turner. I don't always agree with his situational awareness. I think there are times where he could run it. And remember, we had a possession against the Saints. I want to say it was our possession where we ended up with a field goal, but we ran it all the way down the field. Literally, Heineke turned around and handed the football off, and we muscled our way down the field, and it was pretty much all gun runs for the most part. But we did some creative things. I think DeAndre Carter touched it twice with a jet sweep and a little, touch pass or whatever in the backfield, and we got creative with the run game, and Gibby got going, and everything kind of just worked on that drive. And then we got down there, and then all of a sudden Scott Turner forgot how we got down there and started to want to throw it, and then we ended up having to kick a field goal. So I actually like what Scott Turner's done. I just don't think his situational awareness sometimes is the best. Let's see. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Trevor Patch, writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, Trevor Patch, as well. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Trevor Patch, writes, tired of this toxic Washington football team culture. Fans are a part of that culture. Stop contributing to it. Show up to FedEx Field and support the team. The fans win this and win a game we have no business winning. So I don't know if Trevor Patches, he's an avid, game goer, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. I don't know if he's a season ticket holder or not. I would assume that he is, because he goes to quite a few games every year. That said, there have been a lot of reports and a lot of people throwing out numbers about Washington being the worst in home game attendance this year, and rightfully so. And you know what? I'll read you a tweet from Danny Rouillet from the Grant Danny Show. And this somehow ended up on my timeline. I think somebody brought it to me, as a lot of times how things happen. But I want to read you this tweet from Danny Rouillet because I think it's apt, and he's really speaking about people like myself, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I've already told you guys this already. This is how he feels. So he says, I'm gonna read you the thread. So there were a couple of threads here, and I'm gonna tell you which one applies to me. And this is how I feel, and I'm not going to change my mind. He says the Washington football team is last in attendance this year, and that's not honestly. He said, and that's honestly not that big of a story. He said how far, in all caps, back they are is. And I think like the next closest team is like 20,000 ahead of us in terms of average attendance. We're like at 51,000 on average. And I think the next lowest team is at like 70,000 essentially. So it's not close essentially. Anyway, so his next tweet or the thread to that tweet is few things. He says, I do not go to games and will never go back to that stadium. I am a part of the problem. This isn't good for anybody. I want them to be great and for people to care a lot, and personally and professionally, it's just hard to believe. He says, you hear the, and this is the next tweet or thread, you hear the anecdotes about some of the experiences. He says, gross water falling on fans, long lines, etc. I get how frustrating that can be after another "this time is different" plea. He says, and this is his last thread, what's truly amazing to me is that even when things started getting bad, they still drew. The team was 6th in attendance in 2017, a 7-9 season. So essentially what he's saying is it's gotten to this point now to where fans are either apathetic or they're like him and me. So he just described me when he said, I do not go to games and I will never go back to that stadium. I am a part of the problem. I've admitted that. I'm a part of the problem. I'm not going back to that stadium. There's no reason for me to go back to that stadium unless there's an NFC championship game or something like that. There's no reason for me to be there because I probably still wouldn't go. But if we get a new stadium, I'm going to go because I want to see what it's like. I want to be in that atmosphere, in that environment. FedEx Field is a dump. The prices for everything are way over there. It's way overpriced. Okay. Getting to the stadium is a headache. Getting out of the stadium is a headache. There's no purpose for me to be there other than to support my team, and I can do that from my couch. So when I complain, and I don't complain about fan attendance anymore. You don't hear me complain about that anymore. You know why? Because I'm a part of the problem. And I know that, and I acknowledge that, and I've told you guys this. I'm not going back to the stadium. I have no reason to go to these games because I don't like how we're treated as fans at the game. We're treated like just another number, essentially. Dan Snyder has never made the fan experience a great one. He's never treated us like a family. He treats us like we're all cash cows. And he can pull from us and milk us at any point that he wants. And when he took over as the owner, one of the first things he did was he upped parking and he upped the concessions and everything started to cost this inordinate amount. And the game experience and the team stinking and none of that stuff matched up to how much we were paying. I don't mind paying $87 for a beer if the team's 12-5. Shit, I'll pay it. But if we're 5-12 and you still want to bust me over the head for parking and you want to bust me over the head for a hot dog and a beer, kiss my ass. And the stadium sucks and it's poorly placed, kiss my ass. I'm not going to the game. So I can't point the finger at anybody else for not going because I don't go and I'm not going. And I've already told you guys that I'm not going. Every year, people ask me, hey, are you going to any games this year? No, I'm not. When I get a new stadium in 2027, that's when I'll bring my ass back to a game more likely than not. So am I a part of the problem? Yes, and I acknowledge that. But at the end of the day, if you want me to drag my carcass out of my house and come to the stadium, even though I know it's a piece of shit and it's a dump, win some damn football games and maybe I'll reconsider. I'm not showing up for 8-8, not showing up for 7-9. I'm not showing up for 8-7-1. No, I can watch it from my house. So I hear you, Trevor, and you're one of the loyal ones that continue to go no matter what. I'm not one of those people. I'm sorry. I'm just not going. The stadium is a dump. We deserve better. And if the product on the field isn't going to be better, then at least you can treat us like royalty for showing up at your dump stadium. But he doesn't do that. So, no, I'm not coming back to the stadium. Just like Danny Rouillet said, I have no reason to be there. I don't feel like it, and the attendance is reflecting the fact that we stink. We stink, and there's really no reason to be at the game. They haven't given us a reason to leave our house. You got a 60-inch TV at home? Why the hell do you need to be at the game? For the ambiance? For the crowd that's not even your own? To be surrounded by the other team's fans? Why do I need to be there? It was one thing when RFK was rocking, and I never got to experience that. That's one of the things that I wish I could have experienced. And for those of you who have, I'm jealous and I'm envious, because I can only imagine what it was like to have that stadium packed with 55,000 fans screaming at the top of their lungs, that bottom lower rung shaking, and just be surrounded by all Washington fans. And to have the season ticket waiting list be to the point where you thought, I'll never be able to get on it in my lifetime, but maybe my kid will, and I'll sign up because maybe my kid will be able to get some tickets one day. Sort of like the Green Bay Packers. You know, their season ticket wait list is like ridiculous. You know, I follow this guy named Darren Rovell on Twitter, and he signed up for the Green Bay Packers season ticket list, like he said, like 15 years ago or something like that. And he said, yeah, I moved up 5,000 spots and I'm still 54,789 in line, 89th in line. Like, he'll never see those tickets in his lifetime. Okay. But that's because the Packers for 30 years have had Aaron Rodgers and Brett freaking Favre. They don't know what having a bad quarterbacking situation or losing seasons look like. Okay. They've gone from one Hall of Fame quarterback to the next Hall of Fame quarterback. They've been spoiled. They have no idea what it's like to walk through the quarterback wilderness without a roadmap in any way to get out and no end in sight. Just darkness, trees and darkness. They don't know what that's like. So that's why their fans continuously show up. And oh, by the way, there's not anything to do in Madison, Wisconsin. So that helps too, or wherever the hell. Green Bay, Wisconsin, excuse me, not Madison. That's the Wisconsin Badgers. There's nothing to do in Green Bay, Wisconsin, other than go to the Packers game. That helps too. But I said all of that to say this. Trevor, you can't point your finger at the fan base. I chastise them from time to time when, you know, they say stupid stuff or do stupid things. But at the end of the day, I know where it's coming from. It's not coming from a place of hate. They don't want bad for the organization. It's coming from a place of hurt, not hate. They're tired of losing. They're tired of being stepped on. They're tired of supporting an outfit that doesn't seem to, reciprocate the energy that they invest in this team. At times, it feels like they don't care as much as we do. And it definitely felt that way for a decade when Bruce Allen was employed and all we wanted was for him to get the hell out of town. And they ignored our cries for multiple years. We had to get an entire hashtag going just for that thing to even make a dent. So when fans get upset and they say things that are hurtful to the team and the organization, you can't get upset. When somebody says, I'm not going to the game, F that, you can't get upset. We've been beaten down for 30 years, in the last 20 big time by Daniel Snyder. But again, I'm going to support this team from my couch. A lot of us are supporting this team from our homes, whether we live in Arizona or my guy out in Utah, Justin, I think it's Justin, or you live in LA or you live in North Carolina, like JH. We're all over the map, and we're still supporting the team. But the bottom line is, give us a reason. And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because Ron was thrown. This was the last question he answered at his presser today. And someone asked him about the attendance and the lack thereof. And, is it disappointing? And Ron said, yeah, it's disappointing. But you know what? We got to hold up our end of the bargain. You want the fans to come out. We got to give them a reason to come out. We got to hold up our end of the bargain. We got to win some football games. He's right. He's right. Win some damn games. Don't talk to me about it's different this time, as Danny Rouillet said in his thread. Nobody wants to hear about how it's different this time around. Show me. Stop telling me. Show me. We were supposed to have this elite top 5 defense this year. Oh, yeah? Well, right now, we're bottom 5. We stink. Stop talking about it and do it. Till then, you can't really point the finger at any fan and chastise them for this, that, or the third. Every fan has earned the right to come and go as they please, to do and say as they want, because this organization hasn't done anything to stop people from feeling the way that they feel. And as I've always said, I'm not going anywhere. I'll always support the team. But there's varying degrees of what I'm willing to do to support this team. And when Daniel Snyder refused to get rid of Bruce Allen, I told you what my stance was. I'm not going to stop cheering for the Washington Redskins. That's what they were called at the time. I'm not going to stop cheering for the Redskins. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop buying Redskins apparel and merchandise. I'm going to stop going to games. I'm not buying tickets for anybody else to go to any games. I'm going to stop putting extra money in that man's pocket. That was my stance. That was the stance that I was taking. I was going to do my part. I wasn't going to stop cheering for the team. I'm never going to stop cheering for the Washington football team. But there's varying degrees of what I'm willing to do to help support this nonsense that they do on a weekly basis to us. And one of those things is, so you get a brand new stadium, which they're having a hard time doing. You know why? Because Daniel Snyder's a piece of shit. You know why we're having a hard time getting a stadium? Nobody wants to work with Daniel Snyder, and I don't blame them. You know, there's another Washington Post story coming out tomorrow. Nobody cares. You don't want to hear about that shit. More negativity for the team, that they were paying off, paying people to keep their mouth shut about the culture of this organization. Are you surprised? You shouldn't be. But that's why Daniel Snyder can't get anybody to get in bed with him, to give him the money to finance a new stadium, because he's a piece of shit. And nobody likes being associated with a piece of shit. So when you do that, that's when you'll get me to come out of my house. But until then, Trev, sorry, you can't point the finger at people and tell them they need to come out to the stadium. Can't do it. Shout out to Hidden Rain Pac-Man D3 for being a squad member for 2 months. Again, thank you for your loyalty and gaining that S. Soon you'll have that Q on your stamp as well. Hidden Rain writes, Lou, it's good to be back. I still feel like this defense can be great, but I got to see some accountability. We have the talent to be damn good defense, and the underachievement is unacceptable. It is. And we'll see what happens. This week is a big week, but again, if this is the week you're looking for defensive accountability and guys to step up and make plays, you're sadly mistaken. This is not the week. Neither is next week. Maybe the week after that, when the Denver Broncos are on the schedule. They seem to not be able to score on anybody, but leave it to us to give up 30 to the Denver Broncos. They haven't scored 30 all season. I bet you if that's still the case by the time we get to them, if the defense is still playing the same way they've been playing, that will change rather quickly. But I digress. Tony P56, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Tony P56, writes, what up, Lou? Like many other fans, what up, Tony P56? How rude of me. Says, like many other fans, I'm looking for answers. Today, I'm pointing the finger at positional flex. Your thoughts on positional flex versus one position players. It's bad when the fans start trying to find reasons. So he said today, the topic du jour of the day is position flex. Okay, let's have a discussion on Ron's favorite thing, positional flex. Now, I love position flex, man. I'm with Ron on that. The more a guy can do, the better. That's been the motto in New England for years, is the more a guy can do, the better off the team is, because when injuries start to take effect, if you have a guy that can do multiple things, then you won't see the type of drop-off that a lot of teams seem to have when they don't have that kind of flexibility. That said, to your point, if you get a guy that's just good at doing one thing, like, for instance, playing free safety, and you're not worried about rock and rolling your safeties, and so he doesn't have to worry about being in the box, this, that, and the third, but he's a really good deep safety, there's something to be said about that as well. But in this day and age in football, with these offenses evolving each and every single season, and, fullbacks are better athletes, tight ends are better athletes, receivers are ridiculous, and they're spreading you out and they're trying to create mismatches. Everybody on the field, not with their hand in the dirt, needs to be an interchangeable piece, essentially. Your linebackers need to run like safeties, but hit like linebackers. Your safeties need to run like corners, but hit like safeties. Like, that's the new NFL. So you want interchangeable pieces. You want positional flex, because if you don't have that, if you got a guy that, for instance, Landon Collins, he's really a box safety. Who are we kidding, right? We try to do multiple things with him. We try to put him in coverage on tight ends. He's really just a box safety. We knew that when we signed him, and we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It's okay. If you stick him in the box, he'll probably thrive in that role. You blitz him. That's what he was good at in New York, was blitzing and being around the line of scrimmage. We're trying to get cute with Landon Collins. And you know what? He's probably better off just doing that one thing. But guess what? If we would decided, hey, Landon's just going to be, our Buffalo nickel, that big nickel. He's just going to be in around the line of scrimmage, almost like a linebacker. You know what teams are going to start doing? All right, Landon, get your ass out here in coverage on our linebacker or on our tight end, and we're just going to take advantage of your ass that way. Like, they're going to find ways to find matchups to exploit him, So you just want guys that are interchangeable. So I get it. You're grasping at straws here, and you're like, hey, positional flex is the thing that I'm going to pick at today. But I agree with Ron. You want positional flex. You want guys that can do multiple things. I'm not saying you want Pam Mom, which is proficient at many, master of none, which is a phrase I came up with for guys that can do a lot of things but can't do one thing great. I'm not saying that that's what we necessarily have. There's a bunch of guys that are proficient at many skills but a master of none. But we may have some guys that are like that, But you want your guys to be able to do a little bit of everything, if at all possible. So, yeah. I hear you, Tony P56. That was a funny comment, though. Anyway, let's get to the next comment. And it's from, let's see where we are. Next comment is from CJ Shoots Photo. Thank you for the super chat, CJ Shoots Photo. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, CJ Shoots Photos, who writes, I feel like since our defense is not who we thought they were, I'm glad our Cowgirls games are late in the season. Maybe get our crap together by then. I think that's a gift and a curse. Honestly speaking, while they look really good on offense, I would have loved it. I'd rather play the Dallas Cowboys than the Kansas City Chiefs or the Green Bay Packers. I'd rather they backload our schedule with those types of games and give us the Giants and the Eagles and the Cowboys right now. Like, that's another difference between the schedule this year and last year, is that, our schedule was trash. We weren't a good team in 19, and that led to us having a last place schedule and all of that good stuff. But remove that from the equation. We played pretty much the same teams because we didn't have a 17-game schedule. So we played pretty much the same teams minus 2 games last year than everybody else in the division. That said, when we got off to that rough start with all those tough games, guess what? Shit got easier. Why? Because we played division games. I just told you, after we played the Rams in week number 5, it was Giants, Cowboys, Giants in weeks 7, 6 through 9, because we had a bye week in week number 8. But it was Giants, Cowboys, Giants right after the bye. And even though we still lost 2 out of 3 of those games, both of the games to the Giants, you'd much rather take your hand at the Giants than, at Green Bay and home for Kansas City. I'd much rather try my hand at going to Philadelphia this week versus having Kansas City at the crib, or going to Dallas next week instead of going to Green Bay. I'd much rather have my hand at that. Give yourself a chance to not only do damage to Dallas, but, get your shit together and get back on track. Dallas isn't invincible. Like, don't fool yourself. Dallas can be beaten. So I would much prefer to play Dallas right now. To hell with that waiting shit. By the time we get to the end of the season, our season could be over. We got nothing to play for. That could be 2 ass whoopings against Dallas for all we know. Shit, our season's still on the line right now. I'd love to have Dallas coming to town right now. To hell with waiting until week 13 for that. So, yeah. I'd rather have those games right now. That's part of what makes this schedule brutal, is that they didn't sprinkle in a couple of division games to break up the monotonous nature of our schedule with all these tough games. Let's see. Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny, writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, Big Money Sonny. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, you're right, Lou. We stink like mop water and grandma's funky cheeks. I'm not going to that stadium until we get a real squad in there. Peace and love. I mean, look, I had told myself I had vowed not to go back to the stadium until we got a new stadium, but I'll consider going to the games if we're good. You could call me a bandwagon this, that. Y'all know I ain't no damn bandwagon fan. So I don't pay attention when people, get mad about that. Bottom line is, you win some ball games, you give me a reason to leave my house, and maybe I will. I'm not saying I will, but I'll think about it. I'll consider it. I'm not thinking about that shit now. I got no intentions of attending any Washington football team games for the next 6 years until they get a new stadium in 2027. That's when the lease is up. No intentions. Zero. And I hate the location in Landover. And even if they can't find anywhere else to build it, and they got to build the shit right there in that same parking lot, right next to where the stadium is now, I'd still go. Just to see what it's like, to see what that environment is, and to see what upgrades have been made and what kind of stadium they have. I would imagine it's going to be state of the art. I imagine he's going to want that stadium to look something like Jerry's. It's not. He didn't have that much land to do it, Jerry has a fortress built to him, essentially, a shrine, if you will, out there in Jerry's world. Daniel Snyder wants to be Jerry Jones so badly, it's not even funny. And he couldn't be any more further from Jerry Jones. And not that you want to be Jerry Jones. Don't get me started on that. But Jerry Jones is in the Hall of Fame for a reason. So anyway, I digress. Thank you for the super chat, Big Money Sonny. Let's see. Stephen A. Smith. Thank you for the super chat, Stephen A. Smith. Greatly appreciate you. Some of y'all are hilarious. You know that? He says, Louie, which that's not how you spell my Louie, but okay. Devil ESPN here. White on white this week. I don't think you get white on white this week. I could be wrong, and white on white could be coming. I think white on white, and again, I told you, I don't want to abuse white on white to the point where it loses its luster and loses its credentials. Right now, white on white are for big spots on primetime television, essentially. When we wore it last year, it was against Pittsburgh. Now, we also wore it on the road against the San Francisco 49ers. And I think we wore it on the road against the 49ers in that game. I'm not sure if we did or not. So don't get me to lie. I think we wore it against the 49ers. But for the most part, we wore it in that Steelers game. We wore it against the Eagles. I think we wore it against the Eagles in week 17, and we wore it against Tampa Bay in the playoffs. Then we wore it this year against the Giants on Thursday Night Football, week 2. Like, these are big spots with everybody watching. I don't think you just break it out randomly in week 6 against the Chiefs at 1:00 on a Sunday afternoon, but they can do whatever they want. I mean, at some point, we got to learn how to win with whatever we got on, whether it's the solid tops. It's like, I'm going to tell you right now, the all burgundies are dope, but we just can't win any games in them. But at some point, like, I always joke and say, when the Cowboys wear their all navy blue tops, they stink. That's your best chance to beat them. They hate wearing that. That's why when they're at home, they wear their white tops. And when they're on the road, most times teams wear solid colors, so they get to wear their white tops anyway. They don't want to wear burgundy. They don't want to wear their navies. They stink when they wear their navies. They almost lost to the Chargers, and I was joking with my dad and my sister because I said, y'all got y'all navies on. Y'all going to lose to the Chargers. And they almost lost. They tried to piss that game away. But the Chargers wanted to lose more than they did. So they won that game. But they tried to lose that game as badly as they possibly could. But you have to overcome that. You got to, like, that's bullshit we talk about as fans. They don't care about that. I want them to put on the burgundy on burgundy. I would prefer them tomorrow to wear burgundy on or Sunday, burgundy on burgundy, not white on white, burg on burg. We got to win a game at some point with that shit on. So, I don't know. I don't think they're wearing white on white. I could be wrong. We'll see. Thank you for the super chat, Stephen A. Smith. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Trevor Patch, writes, first of all, double up. Thank you for doubling up, Trev. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, finger pointing isn't the goal. Just saying someone has to start. We can only control us. We can't draw false start flags on the Giants from our couch. Just trying to rally a win on Kansas City and avoid 2005 reruns. No, and I understand what you're saying. You're absolutely right about that. But again, what's the incentive to show up to try and draw a false start on the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday? What's the incentive? Why? Why should I do that? Why should I expect them to not give up a 75-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill? Me showing up in the stadium and screaming as loud as I can on 3rd and 18 only for them to give up 21 is going to make a difference? That's how they make me feel. That I'm not saying that that's right. That's how they make us feel. So why would we want to show up for that, Trevor? And to your point, you're saying, hey, forget about what they've done to us in the past. You're almost saying what Ron's saying. Hey, don't harp on what happened to you in the past. I'm here now. Let's start over and let's do this thing the right way. Well, that's easy to say, Ron, but you haven't been living, eating, breathing, and sleeping on this, eating, living, breathing this team for the last 20, 30 years and been miserable in doing so. You haven't put up with the shit that we've put up with. It's not easy to just say, hey, got a brand new coach that wants to do it a different way. It's a new day. Let's give him a chance. I'm doing that. But again, I've said this already. I'm doing that, but I'm also doing that in my own way. And I get the right. I have the right to do that. I've been given the right by this organization and their malpractice to do it however I see fit. And if me sitting at my house on my couch is the way I see fit to show my support for this team, then they shouldn't have a problem with that because they put me on the damn couch with the way they've run this organization into the ground. And I'm not alone. The attendance, which Danny Rouillet brought up. In 2017, we had been mediocre for the past 17 years under Dan Snyder and going back before Joe Gibbs, 2.0, all the way back to 1.0 Gibbs. We were mediocre for 27 years, and there still was 70,000 fans showing up on a weekly basis for this team, even though they were god-awful. You know why? Because they still had hope and belief. But you know what that hope and belief turned into? It turned into a disrespect at a level that isn't even fathomable. And at this point, it's almost irreversible damage that's been done. To some people, they're not coming back, no matter what happens. I feel like if Daniel Snyder hadn't spit in our face when we wanted Bruce Allen gone, and we probably wanted Bruce Allen gone, and the real outcry for Bruce Allen's head started right around 2016 when they didn't re-sign Kirk. When they had a chance and Bruce Allen started to play the penny pinching game when Kirk just wanted $48 million guaranteed and he tried to shit on him and say, hey, I got 24 for you. It was at that point where people said, man, get this man the hell out of here. First of all, why is he control of personnel anyway? He didn't know shit about football. Let him run the business side of things. Let him keep lying to the fans and talking about every game's a sellout. Let him talk about winning off the field and the Harvest Fest crowd and picnics and pants. Let him talk about that shit. We're going to wear the gold pants this week. Let him do that stupid shit. Don't let him anywhere near the roster. The minute he got rid of Scott McCloughan and undermined him and then took the low road on the way out, that was the moment that everybody said, you know what? We're sick of the what was the name of that damn safety from the Seahawks? Johnson. We're sick of the Johnsons and the Chris Cullivers and the Stacy McGee's and the Joe Salaveas of the world, the Stephen Pyers. Like, we're sick of this shit. All these guys that he's getting on these meager deals that he's patting himself on the back for that stink. Get his ass out of here. He's a terrible general manager. If Daniel Snyder would have listened to the fan base then and gotten rid of his ass instead of digging his heels in even further and spitting in our face, maybe we still would be coming to games. Maybe, just maybe. I don't know. The losing started to get old too. But you know what makes it worse? You're losing every year, and then you're getting spat on by the owner who gives you the bird, essentially, when you tell him this guy is destroying our organization and you're letting him do it. And for him to year after year not only say, shut up and sit down, but to give Bruce Allen, and you remember there was like a 3-year period where every year Bruce Allen got more and more power. Not only did we want him gone, and Bruce said, no, shut up. Or Dan said, no, shut up. But he would turn around and give Bruce even more power. It's hard to get people to get on board, to help draw a false start or delay a game when this organization has driven you to the brink of saying, you know what? F them. F them. Trev, bruh, I'm sorry. I want as many people like you to go to the games. I'm rooting for it. I really am. But the only way you're going to get, and it's the chicken or the egg, right? I guess that's the premise that you're pretty much, coming from and speaking from is, how are we going to win if you guys don't come out and support? Easy. Go out and execute. You don't need us to do that. It'd be nice to have it. The Chargers are 4-1. They never have a home game. Every game is a road game, even when they're at home. Shit doesn't matter. They're 4-1. You know why? Because they're a good football team. They're well coached and they execute. So I don't buy the chicken or the egg. If we come out, we'll win. No, not quite. Not exactly. If they win, then we'll come. That's how this equation works. Thank you for the super chat, Trevor Patch. See if we got another super chat. And we do. This one is from John McDowell. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, John McDowell. Mickey D writes, dang, Lou, you've been treating us Patreon supporters like redheaded stepchilds. No love, no shout outs, no sticker badge, and only one game breakdown so far, but I know your time is tight. So let me speak to that right now. The NFL has been dicking me around on the film. I'm going to do my best this offseason to try and find some kind of connect that I can get the film from. That's really what it boils down to is I need to be able to circumvent this process. The NFL switched their interface. I've already talked about this, but they still don't have the film up from this week's game. And I don't think they had the film up from last week's game either. And they haven't had the film up. And it's frustrating because you guys deserve better than that. Secondly, I need to be better about my Patreon users and supporters, because you guys are awesome. And I love every single one of you. And I'm going to have to figure out a way to make sure that you're getting the love that you guys deserve, because I appreciate you guys a ton. I really do. So I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to put out some content this week, regardless of whether I get the film or not. I can go through the game copy. It just sucks because you can't see everything, as you could imagine, especially where the real problems exist, which is in the secondary. You need the all 22s to really be able to assess that accurately. And so I've struggled with this, because I'm like, the TV copy is cool for the front seven, but it doesn't give you a great depiction of what's going on the back end. And arguably the biggest problem with this team right now is on the back end. So they're killing me there, but I can do a better job of, shouting you guys out and giving you guys some love, because you guys are the true backbone of what's going on here. So I'm going to devise a way to make sure that you guys feel more loved. And I really do appreciate your support. And I also apologize for making you feel like a redheaded stepchild. That is not the goal. And the NFL hasn't made it any easier on me, but I haven't done my part either. Even with the NFL not cooperating, I could do more, and I need to do more, and I vow to do more. So let me apologize to you and every other Patreon subscriber and supporter out there for me. Sorry, I apologize, and I'm going to be better. I vow to be better, John. So sorry about that. John says that's one of three. So let's get to his next comment and pick up where he left off. He says, personally, I'd only wish for a few plays of the defense broken down now and then, and none of the other stuff, including no mob texting in the peanut gallery, no trolling. And let's get to your third comment. He says, however, I do enjoy stepping up to the bar to buy an occasional drink, super chat. Anyways, keep on keeping Washington football team hope alive. Oh, one shot of Calvastos, please. So I'm not the, pick a few plays guy normally. Like, when I break down film, I literally break down pretty much the entire game, right? Offense and defense. That's my thing. I want to see exactly what the hell is going on. It's easy to cherry pick a few plays. Kurt Warner did that back after the Giants game, and I see people on YouTube cherry picking plays because that's what they want to talk about. But you need to see the good and the bad. Now, because if I just show you the good, then you think this guy's balling. Well, maybe he is, maybe he's not. Or you think this guy sucks. Well, the film actually says otherwise. You're going to see all of these plays. So I like to show those things because it really gives you a true sense of who's playing well, who's not. So yeah, the NFL is really sticking it to the kid, but I'm going to have to figure out a way to get my hands on the film. Like, I got to find some kind of intel, some kind of contact. Somebody that's got a way to get their hands on the film, because there's a way to get your hand on the film. You just got to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, and I don't know anybody. So that's my problem. I'm relying on the NFL, who, just like the Daniel Snyder, spits in our face because we're paying them our money, and they're like, yeah, you're already paying us your money, so we can do whatever the hell we want to do. I almost want to just cancel my subscription, but I still want to watch the other games, and they know that. That's why they do the shit that they do, because what are you going to do? You're going to leave? If I wasn't doing this, I would leave. Give me back my money. But obviously, I do this for a living, so I can't. So, again, I apologize, John, and I will be better. I promise. Stephen A. Smith, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Stephen A. Smith. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I've read 650,000 emails. Dan mentioned WH/WH this week. I don't even know what that means. Maybe I'm being stupid here, but I don't know what that means. Oh, white on white. Gotcha. Dan is so detached. He doesn't even know what white on white means. He has no clue what the importance of that is. So ain't no way that he would have anything to, any input against that, any input on us wearing that. So anyway, I digress. Thank you for the super chat, Stephen A. Smith. Kismet, man of fate. Thank you for the super chat and being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou. What up, Lou? What up, Kismet? How does our suffering as fans compare with the other suffering of other fan bases? Lions, Bengals, Dolphins, Jets, Raiders. So let's talk about some of these other fan bases that have struggled and have not won, and they continue to support and come out. So let's start with the Lions. Haven't won a Super Bowl, okay? Haven't won a playoff game since 1991. So their drought is ridiculous. They had Matthew Stafford. That gave them a reason to believe every single year. So at least they had a franchise quarterback. We have not. But they've had a new stadium more recently than we have. Ford Field was what, 2005, maybe 2007. Let's look up Ford Field. See what Ford Field. See when this thing was built. Its inception. 2002. It's a beautiful stadium. It's in downtown Detroit, so it's not hard to get to. It's a big revenue generator for that area. We know Detroit's fallen on some hard times, so the Lions give them a reason to get out of the house and do some things. But again, it's in the heart of the city. It's not hard to get to. I would assume that, going to games not only gives them something to do, but there's probably a bunch of different bars and things to do around the stadium, even if you're not going to the game itself. The product on the field hasn't been great. That's definitely been noted. But again, they had Matthew Stafford. Worst case scenario, they had Calvin Johnson. Like, even when the Lions stink, they've had Hall of Fame football players. Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson. Matthew Stafford's probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame. Who have we had in that time frame? Who's going into the Hall of Fame for us? Trent Williams hates our guts right now. He's not going in as a Washington. If he plays another 8 years, he's going in as a San Francisco 49er. So who's going in as a Washington football team member? Who's the guy that we rally behind and say, yeah, he's our guy. He's a Hall of Famer. Don't say Ryan Kerrigan because he's not getting in the Hall of Fame. We don't have a guy. So even though the Lions have stunk, they've had Matthew Stafford, which gives them a shot each and every single week. They got a brand new stadium. And I say brand new in relative terms. I mean, it was built in 2002. So next year will be 20 years. Okay. Well, we've had FedEx Field now since 1996, 97. I think 97 was the first year of FedEx Field. Maybe 98. Let's look at FedEx Field. See how long it is. It's been the 90s, that's for sure. FedEx Field was rushed because Jack Kent Cooke wanted the stadium to be built while he was still alive, and that actually didn't happen. So it was rushed. It was put in a poor. He couldn't get the stadium built in D.C., and so he built it in a weird, place in Landover, Maryland. And it's a dump. It was a dump when it was built. It was in a weird location. Everything was already working against the stadium from the time that it was erected. So 1997, I was right about 97. So over 20 years, be 25 years next year that stadium has been the home of the Washington football team. And it, to me, doesn't – the Ford Field is a dome, so hail, sleet, snow. You can go in there, controlled environment. You don't have to worry about, it's too cold outside, this, that, or the third. But that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is the Lions, the stadium is in a good spot. It's relatively new. It's state of the art, which ours is not. There's an ambiance surrounding the stadium, and they've had a franchise quarterback, a Hall of Fame wide receiver, and a Hall of Fame running back, even though Barry Sanders never played at Ford Field. Their fan bases had a reason to cheer because they've had great players. We have not. The last great player that we've had was Darrell Green. We've been hanging on to Darrell Green for how long now? Like, who's the next guy to go in the Hall of Fame as a Redskin, as a Washington football team member? We don't have one. Darrell Green was the last guy that played that we could honestly say, yeah, he's definitely going in the Hall of Fame. We don't have a guy. The Lions have. So the Bengals, I would say their situation is closer to ours. They've got a cheap ass owner who, a lot of people feel like would rather make money than win football games. I know you guys have seen the picture that's circulating from last week where the Bengals have their setup for their press conference on a projector roller cart with the microphone just sitting up there, and they're standing up with the wallpaper up of all their sponsors, and then you can see the wall of the stadium and it looks old and dirty. Like, it's terrible. They're cheap as hell. They got an old, raggedy, rundown stadium, and yeah, they stink. But here's the difference between the Bengals and us. They have a franchise quarterback right now. They've had players that you could argue, had they been able to stay in Cincinnati, would have been Hall of Fame players for the Bengals, like Corey Dillon, like Chad Johnson, Carson Palmer. They've had franchise quarterbacks. Say what you want about Marvin Lewis. There was a stretch there where they were going to the playoffs every single year under Marvin Lewis. I think Marvin Lewis might have been there for like 12 years, and 9 of those 12 years, they were in the playoffs. Now, I could be wrong, but Marvin Lewis had those boys in the playoffs with Carson Palmer and with Andy Dalton almost every single year. So, and AJ Green, also another guy that could ultimately end up in the Hall of Fame, okay, was with the Cincinnati Bengals. So they've had players, they've had franchise quarterbacks, and they've actually won. Despite having a cheap-ass owner and an old stadium, raggedy, beat down, it's still right in the heart of the city, though. I've been to their stadium before. It's ugly. It's terrible, but it's right smack dab in the city. A lot of bars and different things to do right near the stadium. That's not where FedEx is, but again, I circle back to winning, and they've won more recently than we have, and they had a quarterback that at least gave them hope in Dalton, and before that, Carson Palmer. So, Dolphins. They're interesting because they've been searching for a franchise quarterback since Dan Marino. So they're kind of in the same boat as us in that regard. Their stadium isn't great. I think they've had renovations done to it, though. The Hard Rock Cafe, I think it's called. Let's take a look at their stadium. Hard Rock Stadium. That's what it's called. Hard Rock Stadium. I think they've had some renovations done to it to make it a little bit more appealing. Let me see. I'm trying to see. This stadium was built in 1976. 1987, it looks like. Let's see. Yeah, 1987. And I could have sworn they just did some renovations to it. 2015, they did renovations to it. So it actually looks a lot more modern now. So despite it being an older facility, they've done renovations to it to make it feel like up with the times. That said, the Dolphins haven't been the best run organization, but they haven't been afraid to spend. And I think really with that fan base, they're, I would say, more along the lines of where we are, you know. Dan Marino, he retired in like 2000. So at least they had a guy up until 2000. But I mean, shit, you could say we had Darryl Green up until like 2000 and, 1 or something like that. 2000. I think 2001 or 2 was his last year. So I think their fan base might be the most comparable to ours in terms of haven't had a franchise quarterback, been searching, haven't really won anything of note. Don't know the last time the Dolphins have been in the AFC Championship game. They haven't really won any playoff games, haven't really been to the playoffs all that many times. And they don't really have any players. They obviously had Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor as some guys that gave you a reason to show up at the stadium. But I mean, they're kind of in the same boat as us, honestly. Ownership hasn't been the greatest for the Dolphins. Between Wayne Huizenga and I forget who owns it now, the Dolphins now. He's a little bit better, but yeah, the Dolphins, they're pretty much the biggest difference is they haven't had the off the field scrutiny like us. They haven't had the scandals and they haven't berated their fans. They haven't made us feel like less than a part of the team. So I think there's that. But the Dolphins, they're probably not that dissimilar from us, other than the fact that our organization is the worst in football. Period. The Jets, they're interesting because they just stink, and it seems like they stink, and they're poorly run. Woody Johnson and his brother are terrible owners, just like Daniel Snyder. They have had a bunch of different stupid things off the field happen with them. They haven't had a franchise quarterback. They've made stupid decision after stupid decision after stupid decision. They don't win football games. I can't tell you the last time the Jets were relevant, but then I say that, and the Jets have been to the AFC Championship game twice in the last 15 years. 2007 and I think 2007 and 2005, maybe 2009. Rex Ryan had them in the AFC Championship game twice in a 3-year span, I believe. Let's look up the Jets real quick. And that's the difference. We haven't been in a championship game since 1991. The Jets have been twice since, the mid to late 2000s. Let's go to Rex Ryan. I think that will get us to our answer the fastest. He was with the Jets from 2009 to 2000. So it might have been like 2011 and 2009 and 2011. That's even more recent than I thought. Let's see. Jets. See. It's got to be early in his career. 2009, they were in the AFC Championship game. And remember, they did this with Dirty Chaz. Keep in mind. They were in the AFC Championship in back-to-back years, 2010 and 2009. Remember, that 2009 season spawned the infamous Bart Scott can't wait quote that I love to always reference. So 2009 and 2010, back-to-back years, they were knocking on the door in the AFC Championship. There you have it. It's been shit since then, pretty much, but just a decade ago, they were in the AFC Championship game back-to-back years. So Jets are still long-suffering fans. They're taking it on the chin just like us, but they don't have to go that far back to say that we were in the AFC Championship game. And then the Raiders, here's the thing with a lot of these teams, and even the Dolphins. Last year, the Dolphins won 11 games last season. Missed the playoffs, but won 11 games. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been 10. Let's see what the Dolphins won last game. Hey, Google, how many games did the Miami Dolphins win last year?
Sorry, I don't understand, but I found something similar. Do you want to know when was the last time the Miami Dolphins won 10 games in a season?
Yes. Screw it. They won 10 last year. Let's see what they won last year. Dolphins record.
The Dolphins are in second place in the AFC East with 10 wins and 6 losses for a winning percentage of 63%.
They were 10-6 last year. Thank you, Google. So, even though they stink and they were rebuilding, they somehow managed to win 10 games last year. The Raiders, on the other hand, won a Super Bowl, or went to a Super Bowl, not won a Super Bowl, went to a Super Bowl in 2002, way more recent than us, obviously. They've had players like Charles Woodson, Don the Silver and Black, who's in the Hall of Fame. They've been all over the place. They've been in Vegas. They've been in Oakland, LA. They've been all over the place. To be a Raiders fan, you've had to travel for a long time. But above all else, the Raiders are a brand unto themselves. And no matter where they go, they're going to have fans. And you say what you want about the Raiders. They've had some really good seasons. There was a season where Derek Carr, and I believe it was 2016, Derek Carr was in the MVP discussion that season. And if not for an injury that he sustained in week 16 against the Indianapolis Colts, he might have won the league MVP that year. Probably wouldn't have, but he would have been in that discussion. And then they got ousted in the playoffs by the Houston Texans that year. They would have won that game against the Texans had Derek Carr been healthy. Who knows what they would have done. But the Raiders have had some seasons where they've been really good, So, and they got Derek Carr. And I know all Raiders fans don't love Derek Carr, but he's a franchise quarterback. He gives you a shot. I think the Raiders fans are similar to us in this regard. They haven't won a Super Bowl in a long time, and they were one of those organizations that won all the time back in the 80s and 70s and 80s, much like us, and they haven't hoisted a Lombardi in forever. I think the last time they won a Super Bowl was 1983, I believe. So they went to the AFC Championship game, I want to say in 1990 against the Bills, but lost, obviously. And I think and then of course they went to the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay and lost. So they've been relevant. It's just they're always changing locales, but they've had players. But like our organization, they've made a ton of mistakes. They've been unwatchable at times. Al Davis, God rest his soul, before he died, was, arguably the worst owner in football. Still wanted to be, a everyday part of that organization, but he was incapable at his age and health of really doing a good job of doing that. And so he couldn't let go, and he was hurting the team more than he was helping it. But I said all of that to say this. Even when the Raiders were at their worst, even when the Dolphins were at their worst, even when the Jets were at their worst, even when the Bengals were at their worst, even when the Lions, they still didn't have the toxicity off the field that we did. Never. None of those organizations. And they may have had things go on. You know, the Dolphins had the bullying thing, you know, with Richie Incognito and, you know, several other players. But that shit pales in comparison to what we have going on here with Daniel Snyder. None of those organizations were run into the ground like this one. None of those organizations have had their fans treated the way we've been treated. The Jets have a brand new stadium. Literally a brand new stadium. You know, the Raiders have a brand new state-of-the-art stadium. Okay. Dolphins just had renovations in 2015. The Bengals stadium is trash and a dump just like ours. And the Lions have a relatively new stadium that was built in 2002. So it's tough being a Washington football team fan because we get drugged through the mud because our owner is the absolute worst. And we have nothing to show for it. We don't have any players, no future Hall of Fame players. We don't have any guys we can hang our hat on. We don't have any guys that we can say, hey, this guy, we watched him grow from a rookie to here. And, you know, this is our guy. I mean, Terry's that new guy that we're all hitching our wagon to right now. You'd like that guy to be a quarterback more so than anything else. But Terry's that guy we're hitching our wagon to right now. But we don't win consistently enough. We haven't had back-to-back postseason. The Jets had back-to-back trips to the AFC Championship game. We haven't had back-to-back postseason trips since 1991-92. Are you kidding me? The Bengals used to go every single year when they had Marvin Lewis. Anyway, I digress. Thank you for the super chat. I didn't mean to be so long-winded there. Bigger TV, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Bigger TV writes. First of all, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Bigger TV writes. I love Chase, but now we know always take the QB 100. You know, you can't say that. What if Justin Herbert stunk and Chase Young turned into Aaron Donald 2.0 or Myles Garrett 2.0 or Von Miller 2.0, which he still could turn into that. And you decided always take the quarterback. And Justin Herbert turned out to be Jamarcus Russell. Or, you know, that's not fair because he was the number 1 overall pick. We would have taken him 2 overall. Mitchell Trubisky. He turns out to be Mitchell Trubisky. You can't do that. You don't always take the quarterback. You take the guy that you believe in. I've already stated this. We've gone through this exercise already, so I don't really need to do that again. But Washington wasn't the only team that didn't believe in Justin Herbert. He doesn't go number 7 overall to the Chargers if other teams believed that Justin Herbert would turn into what he ultimately turned into. And he's not the only guy. I mean, look at Josh Allen. The Bills traded up to 10. Think about that. Josh Allen may be a top 5 quarterback in the league right now. The Bills traded up to 10 to get him. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football. The Chiefs traded up to 10 to get him. Deshaun Watson was a top 5 quarterback, and when he comes back, will probably be a top 5 quarterback again. And the Texans traded up to like 11 or 12 to get him. What this shows is that teams didn't believe in those quarterbacks. We know the draft is an inexact science. And what I'm essentially saying to you is you take the short thing when you're drafting number 2 overall. You take the can't miss prospect because you can't afford to miss at 2. Chase Young was the can't miss prospect. Meanwhile, Justin Herbert had all the tools, but you could miss on Justin Herbert. You could swing and miss very, very hard on Justin Herbert. And a lot of people felt that way. And I'm not ashamed to say that I was flat out wrong about Justin Herbert. I thought he was going to be a mediocre NFL quarterback. I thought he had all the skills, all the talent that you were looking for. And I remember saying this, he's toolsy. Got an arm, a cannon for an arm. He's big, the prototypical size, 6'6" guy. That's what you're looking for at the quarterback position. He's an athlete. He can run. But my biggest knock on him was, he wasn't all that great of a college quarterback. He was solid. You know, he helped change that Oregon program by the time he left. It was in a much better place than when he got there. But, you know, the best he could do was get them to a Rose Bowl, which means a lot in the Pac-12 and in the Big Ten. But still, he never played in the playoffs. He never elevated that Oregon program to the heights that Marcus Mariota had it to. And then we looked at Mariota and we said, he's not a great leader of men. He's not vocal enough. And a lot of those same traits were attributed to Justin Herbert, right or wrong. And I was guilty of that. Long story short, if everyone believed in Herbert the way that they do now, he wouldn't have gone 7th or 6th. He wouldn't have been the 3rd selected quarterback in that year's draft. He would have went immediately after Joe Burrow. Whether that was at 2 to Washington or at 5 to the Dolphins, he would have been long gone before the Chargers were able to select. He wasn't. He was sitting there for the Chargers to take because there were questions about Justin Herbert and whether he could get it done at this level at a high clip. So no, you don't just take the quarterback just for the sake of taking the quarterback. You take the guy that you believe in. If you believe in Herbert, you take him. They didn't believe in Herbert, and I didn't either. But hindsight's 2020, man. Obviously, Herbert would be the pick now, but we didn't know then what we know now. And I think they made the right move then, and I would make that move 20 times over in that moment, not knowing what I know now. You give me 20 opportunities to do that draft over without the knowledge that we have now, I'm going to do the exact same thing Washington did, and that's take Chase Young at 2, 20 times over. Obviously, armed with the information that we have now, the pick is Justin Herbert 20 times. 20 times over. But nobody was screaming, take Justin Herbert back in 2020. That wasn't the case. So I don't like to play, revisionist history now. Like, oh, we figured it out. We should have done this. Well, yeah, we should have done it now because look what Justin Herbert's turned into. But we didn't know that then. So thank you for the super chat. Bigger TV. Santiago Tradell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, blessings, Lou. Likewise, Santiago. He says, do you think the stadium in DC will bring our home field advantage of fans back? Why is Jay Davis not getting a chance as our top first round pick? So let me just tell you that they're not building the stadium in DC. It's not going to be in DC. That's where it should be. Should be in the city where RFK was, but it's not going to be. So that's one of the biggest problems with this thing is you're going to have to build it, out in Maryland where it is now, in Landover. You may be able to get it out there where the MGM Grand is. I think it's enough space out there, but again, that's far. It's far. Away from some of the loyal fans that want to attend the game. You really would ideally like to put this thing right smack dab in the middle of everybody. And that's what DC essentially is. The DC portion of this equation is accessible enough to those in Virginia, DC, obviously, and Maryland. You stick this thing all the way out in Maryland, and a lot of those VA people are like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going all the way out there. So it ideally would be to put it in DC, but it's not going to happen. And that's part of the problem with this thing. As far as Jamin Davis is concerned, Ron said that his low snap count this past week, because remember, his numbers were going up every single week, was pretty much predicated on the matchups against the Saints. Okay, whatever. Bottom line is he's gonna, like, you guys can't rush this process. Don't try to, and you don't need to. Jamin Davis is fine. Don't over obsess about Jamin Davis and his snap count, this, that, and the third. If Jamin Davis sucks in 2 years, then we have a problem. Jamin Davis is a young linebacker who didn't play a ton of snaps in college as a starter. This was his 1 year as a starter, and he took advantage of it and parlayed it into a first-round pick. He needs time. He's shown flashes. Be content with that. Be content with his growth, whether it be slow or massive. Be content with growth, however it comes. Don't try to rush this process, though. Let him come along at his own pace, and they will decide. Look, you got Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, who are both linebackers in this league. They'll know when he's ready to take over the mantle and be the guy. He clearly isn't ready in their eyes yet, and that's fine. I stressed this to you guys when he was drafted, and a lot of you didn't love the pick, and that's fine, and you can still not love the pick. I don't have a problem with that. But I told you when we drafted this kid, it's going to take some time. Expect him to come along slowly, and patience should be exhibited. So I'm going to continue to beat that drum, just like with Ron's plan. Jamin Davis, same thing. Patience needs to be exhibited. Thank you for the super chat, Santiago Trudell. HBK 730. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, "Hey, Louie, what up, HBK? Any chance we beat the Chiefs this Sunday?" Yeah, there's a chance. Absolutely. Why wouldn't there be a chance? We show up. They show up. It's a football game. Damn right we got a shot. They're 2-3 just like us, right? They're not 5-0. They're not 4-1. They're not the invincible Chiefs of the last 3 years. They're very vulnerable and beatable right now. I just don't think we're in the position to do it. We're not in the position to take advantage of their vulnerability. That's all. But you're damn right. It's not 0% chance, okay? If this were the Chiefs of last year or the year before that, no, hell no. We got 0 chance of beating them. But that's not this Chiefs team. They're struggling right now. Yeah, we got a chance. Put it at like 15%. But more likely than not, we're going to lose this game. But yeah, we got a shot. CGM87. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. CGM87 writes, "Lou, quote, as long as I'm in this effing job, Del Rio will be the defensive coach. No effing questions about that." Close quote. Hashtag inside joke. He pretty much said that the other day, but he didn't say that. But he got chesty when they asked him about it. And I don't think he's going to hitch his wagon in Del Rio. Like, they're not boys like that, to where Del Rio is going to be here as long as he's here. But I could see a situation that he wants Del Rio to come out of this thing, unscathed, because I truly don't believe he thinks it's, solely on, and he's right in thinking this way. It's not all on Del Rio. Anybody that's watched these games knows that, but could Del Rio be better? And Ron's admitted this. Absolutely. Sure. He can be better, but these players have to be accountable for not being better. And we'll see what happens. I'm starting, somebody brought this up early in the season and I swatted it away because I don't like calling people dumb. There's nothing to gain from calling somebody stupid. Nobody likes to be, demeaned that way. And it's no reason to do that. So somebody was like, yeah, we're not smart on defense. And to some effect, they said that. And I don't think they said it in that nice of a way. But however they phrased it, I was like, no, I don't think it's a smart issue. I just think, and I made up some bullshit ass excuse on why they're no. I don't think we're a smart defense. I don't. I don't think we have. And I think the way the person said it wasn't actually bad. I think they said we lack football IQ. I think that's spot on. I tried to come up with some cockamamie excuse as to why this is and that is happening. And no, I don't think it's that we don't have football IQ. And really that's what it boils down to, especially in the secondary, is that you need guys with football IQ. And we don't have it. We don't have a lot of guys with football IQ. We got good athletes. We got guys that know the game, but from a football IQ standpoint, like you can know how to play basketball, but that doesn't mean you have a high basketball IQ. You can know how to play football, doesn't mean you have a high football IQ. I think we're lacking in that department. I really do. I don't think our guys understand, the concept of some of these zones, why they're doing what they're doing, how they should play guys, what's the relationship between, the receivers and the set that I have on my side and what I'm able to do because of the formation and how it looks to my side of the field. I don't think we have a lot of guys that understand a lot of those things. You got no threat in your zone, so you got a guy running, just carry him. Why are you just going to stand there? You got no threat. Run with him. Take that guy away. Don't just stand and say, hey, I'm covering my zone. And now a guy's wide ass open. Be a football player. Run with him. But we don't understand those concepts. So I think our IQ isn't all that great, to be honest with you. Got a super chat here from John Livingston, my guy, JL Smooth. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. JL Smooth writes, Lou, my guy, I hope all is well. Josh Allen went 7th. What did I say? Did I say 10th? I meant 7th. 10th was Josh Rosen. I know the draft. I know how it went. But if I said 10th, and I probably did, because both of their names are Josh, and that's probably why I did it. Yeah, he went 7th. He says, not 10th. We traded out of the 10th pick for the Chiefs to take Mahomes. Thank God Josh Allen is working out. Yeah. Everybody wins. Everybody wins when everybody's quarterback works out. Everybody wins. But that's why I say the things that I say about Herbert in terms of people. Like, nobody believed in Josh Allen. You think if they knew what they knew about Josh Allen now, that Sam Darnold would have gone ahead of Josh Allen? Hell, Baker Mayfield wouldn't have gone ahead of Josh Allen if the Browns and the Jets all knew what Josh Allen was going to turn into. Like, that's why I say you can't go back and change things. It is what it is. You think Patrick Mahomes goes behind Mitchell Trubisky? Really? I mean, what are we talking about here? They had no idea how that thing was going to turn out, obviously. Think Deshaun Watson goes behind Mitchell Trubisky? No way. Like, you don't know how these things are going to go. So, thank you for the super chat, JL Smooth. Greatly appreciate you. So, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on Washington Football Nightly. I really appreciate you guys continuing to support. Tomorrow, we will turn our attention, our full undivided attention, to the Kansas City Chiefs and what it's going to take to, get a victory up off those Chiefs. They're struggling just like us, but doesn't mean that they aren't capable of dishing out an ass whooping. We're not capable of dishing out an ass whooping, but we are sure capable of receiving one. So we'll talk about the things that need to be done to give us a chance in this game. That's all we're asking for, is a chance. Probably won't win, but at least let's, in the fourth quarter, have a chance to win this football game. So we'll talk about those things and more tomorrow on the show. We'll have an update about the practice and the injury report and all of those good things and more. So I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow and talking about that. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington football team. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care. And I will see you tomorrow for Washington Football Nightly. And for some of you, I'll also see you for overtime. Hopefully, we'll all get to watch the Eagles lose and take sole possession of second place in the NFC East, even if it's only for 3 days. Anyway, I'll see you guys then. God bless and good night.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone.